Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Hughes, the Vice President at Vans Aircraft.
And I'm Rian Johnson, the President at Vans Aircraft.
And we're coming to you today to do a video communication this time. You've heard from us via email and a couple of written communications on the website. And one of the things that we said we'd do is that we would do about every couple of weeks, try to do some kind of communication with an update about what's happening at the company. And so that's what we're doing today. We recognize that there's questions that you all have about what's going on and the status of kit orders and what's changed and what's happening and what we're doing about it. And so we have a variety of topics that we'll discuss today. And along the way, we'll help answer some of those questions and talk about what we're doing about it.
Why don't you start off with a few numbers?
Sure.
For the order rate at Vans Aircraft. You see them come over the counter. You're there in the front office.
It's a lot. So, sure, in 2021, we took right around 4,000 kit orders in 2021, which is a significant number. Certainly over the last couple of years, we've seen the numbers rise substantially. And
more than double.
More than double.
And that's going to be a theme of the presentation today.
And there's certainly challenges, that come along with that.
Right.
Why don't we start with quick builds?
Sure. Quick builds, where we left off last summer, we had a communication with you. We were bringing a new quick build vendor online in Brazil. But let's go back to the Philippines first. We've had a relationship with the Philippines since the 90s. We wanted to keep the quality in the Philippines high, and so we've left their production rate at the same rate. And we brought another vendor online. And as a result, we've had to produce twice the amount of product to go to those quick build vendors. Where Flyer is at, we started that relationship at the end of Q2 of last year, and we hope to have them up and running in the fall.
And Flyer is the company that's in Brazil. In
Brazil, yes, producing the quick builds for us. We weren't able to obtain a container to send product to them all summer. We finally, that container shipped out of here in the fall. It arrived there in November timeframe, and then it sat in port in customs for over a month. So we originally were going to see the first container be delivered or sent from Brazil November 24th. And the first one now will ship out of there. We do know when it will ship on the 18th of January. So there was a significant delay there, but they are up and running. And you'll start to see the quick build production rate nearly double. And recently there was a change in the status of quick builds, the delivery dates that we promised. And maybe just a quick explanation of how we calculate those dates. Over a year, in this upcoming year, we'll have about 8 shipments of quick build containers. There's about 100 plus kits in each of those that go to the quick build facility.
So we use full size shipping containers.
Correct.
And let's make sure we talk about the variety of different problems we've had in international shipping with containers at some point in time here. But
yes, right. We'll come back to that.
But when a container goes to either of the quick build facilities, there's about 100 kits. Quick build kits worth of parts that we have manufactured, not yet assembled, to go out.
Right. In
one container.
So we have a spreadsheet that calculates that. We look at each of those going out, and we're calculating the average time it takes to get there, average time to get back, average time to go through customs at the port, be inventoried. We take into account all these variables. If one of those variables changes, like shipping, let's say a significant amount, 10 days, if you have 8 containers, the people at the end of the line just shifted to 80 days in their delivery date. So, we're trying to predict these dates as close as possible, but if you're further out, you'll see those dates shift significantly. If you're further in, once a container leaves an assembly facility, we know the container information from the container shipping company, and it's usually pretty accurate. They're now using larger ships across the ocean quicker, and so we're seeing those come back. Sometimes you'll get 4 or 5 that will pile up in one port, like Taiwan, and then they'll all come at once, and that could be a 40-day delay there. We release one about every 10 days. But we know when those will come back.
Right.
And then your shipping date will dial in significantly. And at that point, once we tell you that it's in transit back, we usually know
within some
certainty,
reasonable level of certainty approximately when it's going to be
when it will
here.
come back.
Right.
It comes back to vans. It's inspected. It goes on the shelf. And then we need to coordinate, usually with Stewart or another company, and we'll come back to that later on.
For freight shipping, right.
For freight shipping. And so we tell you that the component has went out to crating, but maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, what it means for something to go out to crating versus when it's actually going to ship.
Right. We've used a term, and there's a good chance that we'll probably try to change the terminology and the way that we're explaining things going forward just to make it a little more clear from a customer perspective, understanding perspective.
Right.
But classically, what we've done is we've used the term assigned to crating, and we've talked about a crating window. When we assign a kit to the crating team, it means that it has gone on their list of future work. It doesn't mean that they're starting on it that day or even that week necessarily, but that it has been put on their schedule. And the crating windows that we describe are generally a couple or a few weeks long. And we're refining the way that information is derived and how that information is communicated. And we've had some hiccups along the way, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. But the crating team has been working very hard to become, really change methodology to become, build more predictability into the work that they're doing and the way that it's being scheduled. And also we're working on that in terms of the way it's being communicated. When you receive information that says your crating window is during this period of time, it's an estimate, first of all. It's sort of like a lead time estimate. You know, it's our best estimation with the information that we have at the time. You know, a few years ago when we could take a look at a set of estimated dates and things pretty consistently arrived on time and there wasn't a lot of disruptions for missing parts or things that don't show up on time or that sit in port for a month and a half on the way out and then sit in port again on the way back. You know, it was frankly just easier and we could more consistently predict what those dates were. So the variability is often in things that are, for the most part, outside of our control. But you know, we still have to account for that, and we have to make adjustments along the way.
Right.
What else do you think is important to talk about in the area of quick builds?
I think we're realizing a stable time in container shipping. It's starting to become more stable. Last summer, last fall, it was very unpredictable. We've seen the price of a container go from around $5,500 to come back across the Pacific to over $23,000. And the price to truck that product from Seattle to here went from $450, and last week it hit $3,600.
Right. The
so
multiples of cost.
The cost, we are paying the premium rates to move these containers. Is the only way they move. And we're willing to pay that cost. And we might want to talk about the surcharge. We decided to drop the surcharge. It's going to be somewhat painful to do that, but we'll make it through. Looking at the lead times that were significant to you as customers, we just decided that wasn't fair. So we will drop that surcharge, and we will find ways to make it through. Other items with the quick builds, you know, we want to keep the quality high. Flyer is coming online, Brazil. We should see the order rate or the rate at which quick builds are coming in nearly double by about May. And one of the problems that we have there is with shipping. So we want to talk about Stewart, Stewart Trucking. Everybody loves Stewart. We like Stewart. They're easy to use, but Stewart is not quite able to take care of our current rate coming from the Philippines. And once we double that, we are going to have conversations with Stewart and talk about, you know, can you increase your capacity? Right. But the reality is we need to use other shipping methods. We only have so much space here at Vans. We happen to be here in Hangar India South, the building we just bought, and we've added around 14,000 square foot of floor space over here. We've moved the demo fleet over here. Our old hangar is now storing product, but we're already full.
Yeah.
And we need to ship the product out. And we'll get back to that when we talk about crating. So I'd like to talk about some other areas that we're looking at. Again, we could tell you about the problems, but I want to tell you about the things that we've expanded. So last summer, we had really a spike in orders again around Oshkosh time, and there was a spike right before Oshkosh. That combined with remaking all the product to replace all the quick build kits for a significant number of months where we replaced those corroded kits,
Right.
we realized we needed more capacity. And at that time, we were only able to produce, let's say, 40% of what we needed to make. It was obvious, kind of projecting forward.
Right.
So we started to take actions. One was to look at this building. We purchased this building, moved into that. We looked in the fall at buying a new punch press. And that punch press punches at twice the speed as our old Trump 200. Mm-hmm. We will keep the old Trump 200. And we'll add this, so it's effectively adding like two of our other punch presses. But Trump's behind like everybody else. That won't be here till June. So we said, well, what are we going to do? So one of the things we looked outside at punching outside the company.
Right, using third parties.
Using third party. We went to Trump and said, who else has a Trump machine? Because that would be instantaneous, right?
Right.
The prices were high, and we said, well, why not laser cut?
Right.
And so, as you may know, in the aerospace industry, laser cutting hasn't been allowed in the past. But we have a good engineer here, Bernardo Malfitano, that we hired from Boeing.
Yep.
We bought a fatigue test machine a couple of years ago, and we started the fatigue test process. And that testing ended in early December. We looked at what type of a laser, how much wattage, what cut rate, etc. How do you cut holes?
Which materials are acceptable for it or not? Yeah.
Right. You have a punch pressed hole. It's a round hole, accurate, right on the diameter.
Yep.
Laser cutting, not so much. So you have to figure out what your cut speeds. We worked all that out. We completed the fatigue testing so that you don't have cracks around your holes in the future.
Right.
And at that point, we pulled in multiple outside vendors that could laser cut. So the plan there is we are taking all the internal components out of the kits and laser cutting them out of house. The spar components, thicker components, and the skins will still be done in-house with vinyl on both sides. You want those skins protected. And that will make a significant change on our throughput.
Right.
We are just now seeing the first parts be delivered. And we've also had some material issues with T0, the soft material that we form parts
Soft
inside.
aluminum alloy.
Right.
Right.
Inside the airplane. We've worked through those. Our vendor is increasing the rate, and we should see that at increased rate during this first period up until May. Mm-hmm. He's going to build up the rate at which that material comes in.
But these changes aren't, you don't just flip a switch and then all of a sudden you double or triple your production capacity.
Right, but the important thing is those changes, we're seeing those changes right now.
We're beginning to see the outcome of the changes that we've been putting in place. And that will continue to ramp up over the next several months, and as that capacity continues to increase and we start to actually get those parts in. So
once you have those parts, you have to either bend them or press them. And historically, we had pressed our parts at a company called Usher's Enterprises. Usher designed the pull-in special, the midget Mustang.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there's still all the form blocks over there for that. So there's a lot of history. They grew up with Vans aircraft, but they have a very small press and then a larger press, but they only have so much throughput. So in the fall, we started looking at a vendor up in Seattle. Boeing wasn't making airplanes at the time as rapidly as they were.
Right.
And, that was a growing process. They were used to doing large Boeing parts. I know there was 2 boxfuls of ribs we had to throw away on the first run. We thought we had it dialed with the test parts, and we got it dialed in, though. And, of course, we've communicated this before. We brought our own Hydropress online. Mm-hmm. So we have more than enough capacity. We've basically tripled the capacity of pressing parts, and our forming department at the press brakes has always been stellar.
Right.
And we have enough throughput there. So we feel confident that we can make enough pressed parts, enough metal parts, and our goal there is that we can take the core of the kit, less some of the other parts, and deliver that to you so you have something to work on. That's the goal we're working towards. Other areas, we've solved those 2 areas. I'm currently working on the CNC area. We brought other CNC machines in-house. We need to find more CNC vendors out of house. I know some builders have recently volunteered, yeah. Right? And if the price is right, of course, shipping is now astronomical. Right. Even for regular boxes, it's going to be heavy going across. So that might make it prohibitive. But if you are local, we bought an extra delivery truck.
Feel free to reach out. Give us a
call.
Feel
free to reach out. Yes, and we're also looking to hire people in the production area, whether it be just general production, up to specialized on our equipment.
Probably worth mentioning, just in case somebody sees it that might be interested, is vansaircraft.com/careers is where our current job openings are listed. And so anybody is, of course, always welcome to go and take a look there if that's something they might be interested in.
Sure. Welding is probably the last part. If there's one material challenge we had, it has been steel tubing. We've worked through most of that now. There is only one type of steel tube that we really have a problem getting. For example, the rudder pedals, we'll probably back order those. You'll see things like that back ordered. But again, you can put those in later and you can build the core of your kit. We just got enough material just to do the orders that we need to keep going with the kits that we're going to ship over the next 6 months.
Right.
And we're hoping to get more material in. There are some of those shortages. We could look at redesigning the rudder pedal, but you realize, if you start to do that on multiple parts, we work on what we can, and we'll deliver as best we can.
Yeah, the cost of making changes is also pretty high from a time perspective, right? And so, quick question, or maybe a point to talk about for a minute, because it kind of relates to what you've just been speaking of, is we have parts that we make, and we do 100% of the work. We also have parts that we buy, and we do 0% of that manufacturing. And then we have sort of the variety of in between, where maybe we make stuff, but we rely on a third party who specializes in some process or technology or capability to do parts of it. And some of our parts go through quite a large number of iterations of back and forths and transferring from one vendor to another, a heat treater and a cleaner and a powder coater and a welder and a anodizer and an anodizer.
We brought on a second anodizer.
Right.
Yes.
So you mentioned the CNC equipment and team that we brought on, and so some of the things that used to be done outside we're now doing inside, but there's still quite a few things that necessarily are done by third parties who specialize in doing these things in the aerospace industry, and we really rely on them. But a lot of those, we talk about the cottage industry that's kind of grown up around Van's Aircraft and some of the, as you say, the mom and pop shops, right, or the smaller businesses. And when disruption happens there, that has a real impact on our ability to get some of these parts, which are often considered key parts. But we're taking a look at, if we don't have those right now, can we ship that kit without those parts, and is it buildable that way? And if so, then we'll work on doing that. So
looking at Weldments in that context, there were welders out of house that welded specific components for us. Let's say aileron bell cranks, elevator horns. Those have always been done out of house. Engine mounts. We've doubled the capacity of our engine mounts, and I think you'll see that pick up the rate of finished kits here. We've already seen it pick up the rate of finished kits. But these mom and pop shops, we have to make more weld fixtures. We have started in that process. It is a process, but we'll see that advance. We're going to focus on the weldments. With the material we have, we're going to focus on the weldments that you need to build into the inside of the airplane. For example, a control column in the fuselage that connects the sticks. You'd want to build that in while you're building the airplane. There's other things like an aileron bell crank that can go in later. Those are just two examples of parts, but we want to get you the parts that you need so that we can ship at least the core of kits out the door. There will be some back orders, but we'll try to minimize those. But there are items that we don't have control of. So from the outside the company, there's seat belts, there's seats, wheels, brakes. Some of those components, seats.
Tires,
We put in orders last summer, last October, and we haven't seen anything since that time.
Right.
So we're expecting orders. We're well past the expected due dates. We don't have control over that, but we do have control over the core of the kit. And from here, I think we should talk about, specifically about lead times. We know that many of you plan your lives around these kits and when they'll come to you. You buy tools, you rent a hangar, you may take a sabbatical, maybe planned around your retirement.
Yep.
And so us predicting those lead times, we don't want to make excuses. We know that there's been a vast growth in the company, but we hope we've always also communicated today that we've made efforts to expand the capacity of Van's aircraft, and we're just now seeing the results of that expansion. Historically, we haven't predicted with software lead times. That software isn't in place. Greg is working on that. That's going to take some time to get in place where this happens automatically. So it's a manual process here at Van's Aircraft predicting these lead times, but we have a whole team that's working on it. It's one thing that I, as president, spend most of my time each week right now with the team that, you've given me some of the employees from your staff, and we're in constant meetings as we try to develop a process in the interim until your software is in place to give you lead times. And we feel that now that we have the parts coming in from other vendors that we put in place outside the company to increase our capacities, we will be able to predict lead times moving forward. You'll first see that on the kits that are closer in, and if you're further out or if you've ordered a kit rather recently, you probably won't see lead times that are very solid and
very specific.
Specific.
Right.
But for those that are closer in, we're going to get you those lead times as quickly as we can. You're also going to see changes in the crating department that we'd like to talk about. The crating capacity here at Vans, I remember the QB area was just large enough to crate one QB. So we've completely rearranged. It's one of the things we did over the holidays while we had some downtime. There is crew that still came in over the holidays. We rearranged our warehouse to give much larger areas. As a result, we're going to create multiple kits at once. It's just more efficient. We have to have increased efficiencies to get the extra capacity out the door to you. And as a result, we will take, for example, a RV-10 fuselage. Instead of just doing one of those and then the next in line, we'll pick the next 5 in line, crate all those at once, move them through the system. The reality is we don't have the floor space to keep those on the floor. Right. They start actually piling up in front of inventory that we need to get to. We know this for a fact. It's one of the reasons we bought this building, and one of the main reasons for this building, though, was to store international shipments. We still realize sometimes for tax reasons, at other times just due to the high cost of shipping overseas, we'll still try to accommodate shipping kits together. But here in the United States, once your kit is ready, we plan on just shipping it out, get it out of the way so we can get the next crate in line in process.
Yeah, that's one of the key fundamental changes is just to reiterate is we can't hold on to a fuselage kit, for example, until a finished kit is ready or something similar to that. We will
We'd
have
like
to ship. Oh, we would love to be able to do that.
And if it happens to happen, we will, if we have both come out at the same time, we'll ship them together.
If we get to the point where that's possible in the future, great. But right now, and yeah, if we have kits that are ready a couple days apart, or in the same week, that's different. But fundamentally, we can't have them stacking up on the floor. They've got to go out the door. There's really no other way to do it.
I'd like to quickly address the quality of the crates themselves. Last summer we discovered, well, the only plywood we could get in here it wasn't even square. It also, the lamination between the plywood was not proper, and we discovered that. We've increased the grade of the plywood. Luckily it was available at that time. And we've also reinforced the crates. It seems that, just the quality of the shipping companies, just the throughput. They're also, they have new people working for them.
It's another
we had an
industry that we've
RV10
had our challenges with, for sure.
We had an RV10 empennage. I think it looked like it had been run over.
It was pancaked.
Recently.
By a budget shipping company, by the way. It was one of the cut rate companies that somebody wanted to use. And if I may, that's one thing that I think is important to talk about is the cost of shipping and the selection of shipping companies. So we work with a small number of freight companies for truck shipping. And the ones that we recommend, they do cost a little more. And the cost from all of these companies, even just since the beginning of January, has gone up significantly. And certainly relative to a year ago, it's quite a bit more. I want to make sure people understand that cost is the cost from the shipping company. It's not the cost from Van's Aircraft. We're not making any more money on shipping than we didn't make before, right?
Right.
But when it comes to shipping freight, you get what you pay for. Generally speaking. And the companies that we do work with, there's ABF and Old Dominion and Stewart Transport, among others. Those are probably the primary three. When very few claims, but when we do have claims, they respond very quickly and work with us very, very well. So generally the quality of the work that they're doing and getting the shipments to you as a customer, and if there is an issue, our ability to work with them. And if you have an issue, make sure you let us know. Give us a call or send us an email to let us know that there was an issue when you get it. Because we will work with you on that and we'll help you get that taken care of. You don't have to do that all by yourself.
We only have so many kits to ship out the door.
Right.
And it's not really the cost of the kit, it's that they have a value that's above that. We only have so many to ship out.
Right.
And we want to use shipping companies that are going to get the kit to you, just so we are not robbing a kit from the next person in line.
Right.
So this is helping the customers down the road as well as you getting your kit in a quality fashion.
I think that's about all we wanted to cover. Is there anything else that you had?
Notice we have a commitment to you as the customer. We'd like to communicate better. We fully anticipate doing that in this Q1 of this year. And the future is bright at Van's Aircraft. We're expanding. We're successfully, tripling, in effect, our throughput over the last few months. It's been a process, but it's an enjoyable process. There's problems we've overcome.
Your definition of an enjoyable may be a little different than my definition of enjoyable, but that's okay. So we're working really, really hard, and I think we recognize the frustration that people have with wanting to know what's going to happen when.
Right.
And we're definitely working in that direction. We will communicate on a regular basis, like this and in other ways.
Right.
And we love these airplanes and building them for the same reason that everybody else does. And so it pains us to be in a place where we don't have all the answers for everybody. We are working really, really hard to get those answers. And it's taking a little bit of time, and it will take a little bit of time. But people can know that we're doing that work.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.